All right, guys, so we're starting our first day of division. And this can be a tough unit for some kids, but I think if you hang in there, really pay attention to the videos, I think you'll be okay. So division is the big topic we're working on. Division is not so bad if you think about it like multiplication. So for instance, if you know 2 times 3 is 6, then you already know 6 divided by 3. It's just a part of this fact family. It's what's missing in this fact family. So if you want to look at it as the 6 is there, the 3 is there, what's missing is the 2. So if you know 2 times 3 is 6, then you know 6 divided by 3 is 2. You can think about what's missing in the fact family. Just like if you know 4 times 5 is 20, then you know 20 divided by 4 is 5. You also know 20 divided by 5 is 4. So you can rearrange this fact family. The one thing you can't do is put the 4 or 5 first. So let me show you what I mean by that. So division has some similarities to subtraction in that the bigger number has to come first in division. So you can't do 5 divided by 20 is 4. You have to start with the 20 first. And if I put this into a story, this might make a little bit more sense. If I had 20 pencils and I divided them into groups of 5, each kid would get 4 pencils. I can't divide 5 pencils into groups of 20 because I don't have enough pencils to pass those out to 20 kids. So the bigger number comes first in division. Similar to subtraction, the bigger number goes on top. Here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. We already know 20 divided by 4 is 5, just because of that fact family, and I'll put that fact family back up here. 4 times 5 is 20. What happens if you get one more than 20? So I'm going to put this into a story, and hopefully this will make more sense. If Mr. McShane has 20 kids in gym, and he splits them into groups of 4 for a game, each group would get 5 kids. But if one kid comes in, say late to class, and now Mr. McShane has 21 kids, he still needs to split them into 4 groups, but how many will be in each group? So what is he going to do with that one student? Well, he's not going to make them sit out and watch. He's going to have them join. But how many kids will be in each group changes a little bit. And they'll still have 5 kids in a group, but he will have 1 kid as what I call a remainder. So 1 kid would be left over. Now that 1 kid might be an assistant to Mr. McShane. That 1 kid might make a group of 6, and the rest of them are a group of 5. That 1 extra student, that 1 remainder might be a substitute, and they might rotate in. There's lots of things Mr. McShane might do with that remainder, but he doesn't make that kid sit out the whole time. They become that remainder. So the answer is still 5. That's the quotient in this division problem, and that's the division answer, quotient. But this time they have a remainder because 4 doesn't go into 21 exactly. It does go into 20 5 times, but if it goes into 21, there's that 1 remainder left over. Let's look at some of the problems you're going to start and try today. So here's some examples. Linda makes booklets using 2 sheets of paper. She has 17 sheets of paper. How many of these booklets can she make? Will she have any extra paper, and how many sheets? So when they say extra, they're talking about that remainder, that leftover piece. And they want to know how many remainders there are, but they also want to know how many booklets there are. So Linda's got to take her 17 pieces, and she's got to divide them into groups of 2 to make that booklet. How many groups of 2 go into 17? Now, if you're using fact families, and I know you're pretty good at your multiplication facts, you can figure this out. 2 does not go into 17 exactly because 17 is an odd number, but 2 does go into 16 exactly, and it goes into 16 8 whole times. So I know there's enough paper for Linda to make 8 booklets. Is there any remainders? Well, if she had 17 papers and she only used 16, she's going to have 1 paper left over, and that's that extra paper, that's that remainder. And maybe what she does with this extra paper is she uses it next time as a booklet, or maybe she draws on it. There's tons of things she could do with this remainder, but she can make 8 whole booklets, and she's only got 1 left over. Now you're going to notice that I picked 16 divided by 2 as my fact family. Some people are wondering about, why didn't I pick 18 divided by 2? That's pretty close. Well, I can't pick that because I only have 17 pieces of paper. 18 is more, so I can't use that fact. I have to use a smaller fact like 16. That tells me how many booklets and how many remainders. Let's try another one here. Let me get rid of this here. Linda uses thread to sew the booklets together. She cut 6 inches of thread for each booklet. How many booklets can she stitch with 50 inches of thread? Will she have any unused thread after stitching up the booklets? If so, how much? So that unused is the remainder. And they want to know again, how many booklets can she stitch? Well, looking back at the information, she's got 50 inches of thread, and she needs 6 inches for each booklet. So she's going to have to see how many 6-inch pieces she can get out of 50. So she's going to take her 50 and divide it in 6 inches. And I know my facts, and I know 6 does not go into 50 evenly. But I do know that 6 goes into other numbers. So I'm going to find the closest fact less than 50 that 6 goes into and see what that would be. So the closest one that I know is 48. It's only 2 less. And I know 48 divided by 6 is 8. So if I know this fact, because 8 times 6 is 48, then 50 divided by 6 is still 8, but I have a remainder. And to find my remainder, I've got to see how many I had versus how many I used. And there's 2 more remainders left over because 48 is 2 away from 50. So I'm finding the difference between these two, and the difference is 2. Those extra 2 pieces become my remainder. So my answer, which they call quotient, is 8 remainder 2. How many booklets can she stitch? 8. How many unused pieces? 2. And maybe those 2 inches of string she uses for another project. Maybe she has to throw them away. Lots of things she can do with that remainder, but she can make 8 booklets. One more example we're going to do. Miss Rochelle wants to put 29 students into groups of 6. How many groups of 6 can she make? If she puts any remaining students in a smaller group, how many students will be in that group? So a couple things to think about. She's got 29 students, and she wants to divide them into groups of 6. So we're looking back at facts. What facts of 6 do we know? Well, I know 6 can go into 24. And again, notice I found the fact smaller than 29. Notice I didn't pick 18. If I picked 18, that's way smaller than 29, and you'll see we end up with a huge remainder here, a remainder of 11. Whenever we get a remainder, we want to make sure that remainder is smaller than what we're dividing by. So in this case, I had 11 students left over. I could really divide those 11 students into those 6 groups, and I could spread them out evenly instead of having a group of 11. So I want to divide not by 18 here, but by 24 divided by 6. The closest fact to 29, but don't go over 29. Well, I know 24 divided by 6 is 4. Then I've got to see if there's any remainders here. I've got to find the difference between 29 and 24, and the difference is 5. So I know I can make 4 groups, but I'm going to have a remainder of 5. So for this one, each group of 6 will have 4 students, but I'll have 5 left over. I have to decide what to do with those 5. Am I going to make an extra group with them? Am I going to split them up and make these groups a little bit bigger and have a couple groups of 5 and a couple groups of 4? You've got a couple options, but the answer, the quotient, is 4 with 5 students remaining. Your job is to get worksheet 14 and complete that with these problems. If you need to look back at this video, you can check it out anytime. Thank you.